Was being captain of the 36ers and being the on-court leader a childhood dream?
It was a childhood dream. I guess I always grew up in Adelaide wanting to play for the 36ers. At that point, it wasn't so much to lead the team or captain the team, but that's a huge honour, and to follow in the footsteps of someone like Mark Davis, who had done it exceptionally well. It was a big honour, and I actually sat down with him in that changeover period when I was named captain, and got some really good advice off of him, and was able to put that and my own contributions into some good use over the 14 odd years I was captain.
How has your basketball leadership defined your sports career and post-sports career?
I think it's helped in a way that I think to make successful teams you need really good leaders at the top, and I think over our years that we were successful. Not only was I able to implement, I guess, my suggestions and Phil Smyth's suggestions during that time, but also we had some other really good leaders within our older players in the group, and I think it doesn't just come down to one person as a leadership. It comes down to everybody, but some of those senior players especially, as a lot of football teams now are heading towards that leadership group model. I think that works quite well, and we certainly had some good leaders in our group. And I guess after sport, it's helped me. I've run my own businesses, and it's certainly helped me be a leader and give good direction to, I guess, my staff and people that have been underneath me in whatever roles.
Can you describe how your leadership evolved from the first year you were captain to your final year of captaincy? Did you feel more comfortable in your skin, so to speak?
Yeah, it evolved a lot. When I first started, I was only 23 years old. I was young. I was very quiet at the time. And so a lot of my leadership was done by my actions. It wasn't done a lot verbally. We also had a very mature and aged team at that time, so I didn't have to say much verbally because they were, I guess, more advanced in that area than me anyway. But as the years went on, some of our teams were a lot younger, and I was obviously getting older, and we weren't as successful in those latter years. So I found with a younger team and guys that didn't understand the game as much, that I had to become a lot more verbal. But I guess over those years I'd built up a lot of knowledge that I could pass on, and it was just a matter of how I went about speaking to the different players and trying to convey that message as best as possible.
Since retiring, how does Brett Maher keep the competitive drive challenged?
That's a good question. I play a little bit of sport on the side, and it's really hard when you're used to playing at elite level to play at a social level. You still have that competitive instinct, and unfortunately the mind thinks that you're still at that level, and the body certainly isn't at that level. So it's very difficult, but I think whenever professional athletes step on a court or a field, that just kicks into gear, and so I've been able to have a little bit of a release with some different sporting activities afterwards, and also I think during the working life, I think every professional athlete is competitive and wants to do as well as they possibly can, and I think that's probably helped to drive me in that sense to make myself as good as I can in whatever I take on.
Did you know from early on that being an elite sportsman was a realistic possibility?
I guess it first rang home for me when I was 15 years old. I got selected to go to the Institute of Sport with 11 of the other best juniors in the country, and virtually do basketball full time as well as study. I did high school and a year of university there at that stage, but it was at that point where I realised that this could be my profession leading forward. And then after those 3 years, I came back at the age of 18 to Adelaide and signed my first professional contract, which was a huge thrill to come back and be able to do it in Adelaide. And then I just, as any professional athlete, you just don't know how long that journey is going to last. It could last 2 years, it could last 18 years like I was lucky enough to have, but I guess you just got to keep on plugging away and do the best you can.
For our viewers, can you discuss the very important work in health with the Hudson Maher Foundation?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we set up the Hudson Maher Foundation in memory of our son that passed away in 2003, and he suffered from a rare bone marrow disease, and so we set up the foundation to help a lot of young kids that are going through similar problems where they're having to have chemotherapy, they're having to move interstate for bone marrow transplants, and our foundation was used to help those people and fly their families interstate for that treatment, also to provide medical assistance and really any financial support we could to those families. We've raised through that foundation well over $1 million, and it's still being run today, and as the reins have kind of been handed over to the Women's and Children's Hospital to disperse those funds as set out by our guidelines.
Did you know the last year you played basketball was the right choice to retire? Was the tank empty?
Yeah, definitely. I was speaking with someone the other day about it. It's not very often that a professional sports person gets to choose when they want to retire. They either get sacked or moved on and told not to come back. But my last 2 years, I kind of decided when I wanted to retire. I had a lot of injuries. My calves were really poor, and I picked the time that was ideal for me, and I think it worked. It worked really well to be able to do it that way and kind of not so much have a send-off, but in my mind be comfortable with where I was at and when was the right time to hang up the boots, and hopefully not have to gone on too long, as some athletes do go probably a little bit past where they should.
Who would be a leader that you follow that helped your career flourish, and why? It could be a coach, a player from within the 36ers or externally.
I think Phil Smythe was a really good role model for me. I played with him in my second year and third year with the 36ers, and he captained Australia for so many years and had just had so much experience. And then when he came on as our coach from 1998 onwards, the advice and the leadership and knowledge that he was able to give me, I think really helped in so many areas, not only as a player but as a leader.
What criteria do you measure a great leader by, whether on or off the court or both?
I think any good leaders are able to get the people around them to raise their game to another level. You not only as a leader are looking after your own performance, but it's also your duty and responsibility to try and get the best out of the other people that you're working with and playing with. And I think all good leaders are able to get the best out of the people around them.
For our young viewers who dream to make it big in life, whether basketball or other fields, what advice would you impart from your elite background?
I think any successful people are driven and are led and hang around other successful people. So to make it, you have to have really good self-drive. No one's going to do it for you, so that's a real big key element to be able to do that, but also to surround yourself with really good people. So that means good coaches. Obviously your family's going to be there to support you, but those other things you can control. Being around really good players also helps as well. So success helps to create success, and the more of you are that are in that kind of category, the easier it makes it.
During the championship years with the 36ers, was it evident that the leadership improved within the club and team? Was there a feeling of something special being created or building?
There's definitely a good feeling around the club. There was an aura of confidence, I think, amongst the group, and that grew throughout those years. In 1998, the Melbourne teams were probably a bit more fancied than us, and we hadn't beat them through the season. But as our confidence grew as a team and as a working unit, we felt like we could knock them off, and that happened in the finals. And I think from that point on, once we knew that we could beat them and win a championship, it bode well for the next couple of years, and we were very successful through that late 90s, early 2000 period. And I think it was just getting over that hurdle of beating those Melbourne teams on the big stage, and and it just went from strength to strength.
Was the leadership in the Olympics that you participated in different from the NBL years? Was there a heightened expectation of the leadership on the court?
Not so much heightened expectation. I think where the Australian Olympic team is different is that it is a collection of the best players in Australia or from Australia all put together. So you've got all leaders on that team. Generally, all of those players are leaders within their own team rather than having 1, 2, 3 leaders and then the rest just players. It's a group, and therefore in some ways it makes it a lot easier, but in other ways everyone has their own opinion, and sometimes those opinions can vary. But we had Andrew Gaze there as captain for my first 2 Olympics, and he, I think, does a very good job of working with the team members, and he's got a great personality, and I think those teams, from a player's perspective, were led very well.
If you could create a leadership recipe for success, what ingredients would it consist of?
I think a leader has to lead by example. You can't say one thing and do another. You also have to put in a lot of time and effort not only into yourself but into other people, and good leaders invest in the people around them, and once again surrounding yourself with quality people will help you become a good leader and will help those people around you. I think those are all really good key measures to being a good leader and providing and creating a winning atmosphere.
Would you classify yourself as a natural leader or created by your strong mindset and hard work, talent, etc.?
Yeah, definitely wasn't a natural leader. I was extremely quiet, didn't say much at all, but I think it kind of evolved for me over the years, playing with different people, different quality of athletes and quality of teams, and I think I've over those different years picked up little different things that helped along the way, and it was certainly a work in progress.
How do you deconstruct challenges using your personal and professional leadership style?
I think I'm a big believer in setting goals and working up to a big goal. So I think as far as deconstructing a challenge is having the challenge that you want to overcome and then setting the little goals along the way that are going to enable you to do that. So for me, that's a big one, writing down those goals and ticking them off. You get a little sense of accomplishment when you do that, and to be able to have it written out, complete them and get to that final goal and knock it off is, I think, very rewarding for anyone.
Who is the best leader you competed against in the NBL or the Olympic competitions?
Oh, I don't want to drop names, but I've been playing against the Dream Team. There's nothing better than that. I'm lucky enough to play against the second Dream Team, which was probably the second best team of all time, and that had some really good leaders. I think some of their point guards and leaders on that team, guys like John Stockton, are amazing leaders, and lucky enough to play against Magic Johnson, who was one of my childhood idols. I think what they've done, not only as players but as leaders, they've kind of a good benchmark, I think, for anyone.
Your signatures on the court at Titanium Security Arena, in one word, could you describe its significance to yourself?
In one word. I think it's humbling, and I mean that to be from Adelaide, to be able to have done my career and finish off. It was one of the only times that it had been done in a professional arena when it was actually unveiled. The only one that I knew of at the time was in Boston, where they had Red Auerbach's signature on the court. So for them to do it here, it may have been just that it was the only way they could get rid of me, but other than that, it was very humbling to have something like that done.
Are you glad that you stayed a one club player for the 36ers?
Yeah, I am. I think especially coming from Adelaide as well, it was really nice to be able to do that. there were certainly times throughout my career when I was close to leaving, and I think that would have tarnished it a little bit in some respects, but yeah, to be able to stay a one club player, it doesn't happen very often, and yeah, I'm pretty honoured to have been able to play all my career in the NBL in my club.
Your career has been stellar, from the Olympics, championships, multiple MVPs, All-Star games. Are there any achievements you wish you could have achieved?
Probably two or three things that I would have liked to have maybe gone down the track a little bit more of. When I was growing up, very tempted to go play college basketball, as a lot of young kids are these days. I was heavily recruited by Arizona University, and unfortunately blew my right knee out. I had a full knee reconstruction while I was at the institute, and quite obviously they went another way in who they were recruiting, and that's certainly fair enough. But I probably would have liked to maybe, looking back, of experience going to college in the States would have been one thing. Chasing the NBA dream, I probably could have done a little bit harder throughout my career. I didn't really chase that at all. I could have gone to some summer leagues, as a lot of guys are now, and maybe tried that a little bit harder, and I don't regret it, but that's something else I could have done. And I did have an experience overseas in Turkey playing for Beşiktaş, and that was a great experience, and if I could have, I probably would have liked to maybe experience that a little bit more as well, playing in the European leagues.
What does a regular day in the life of Brett Maher look like today?
Well, I'm now a full-time firefighter, so I go to work on my shifts as a firefighter, which is great fun. It's taken me a long time between being a professional sports person to find a job that I'm really happy with, and nearly as happy. You can never be as happy as being a professional sports person, but being in the fire service is very close, and I'm loving doing that at the moment. So that's fulfilling me from a job perspective. I also run a company called World Sports Tours that takes young basketballers and soccer players and cricketers and netballers to international destinations to play games, and that's a real passion of mine. It's something I did when I was younger and loved, and I want to be able to give back and give some of these young kids that opportunity to have a life experience and get to play on the international stage. So I'm really enjoying doing that as well.
Great. Thanks for your time, Brett.
Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah.